Hi guys, I am Dr. Nicole. I'm with Awaken Chiropractic and Wellness Center. We're an office out in Edmond. So my biggest thing, the reason I'm here is because I've sat in a lot of the shoes of you guys who couldn't find any answers. I did the doctor hopping, the doctor shopping. I was at the end of my rope in all different ways, financially, mentally, physically, just how am I going to continue going? So I'll start by telling you a little bit of my story and how I got to where I am today. So I was Miss Athletic. I worked out every day, pushed my body to the brink of every single time, every day. I was not a rester, and I was a doer, and I know that a lot of you guys can probably relate to that. Do, especially you moms that are taking care of these kids that have things that are a little bit more challenging. So you're the doers. So I was gradually started getting pain in my left side. So my left hip was just like on fire. It just felt like there was fire down my leg. And I found some relief through a chiropractor here in Edmond. And so I dropped out of physical therapy and I went to chiropractic school, and I got worse. Way worse. So I was getting overstimulated. In chiropractic school, we practice on each other. You're not supposed to, but we just beat the tar out of each other every day. Let's get that bone to move. And so we were training, we were learning how to access the body in different ways, and we were the experiments of that. And I was just getting overwhelmed, overstimulated, and it got worse. So you could literally draw a line down the center of my body, and it was like fire, just all down my body. So I was seeing functional neurologists, I was seeing nutritionists, I was doing all the things, the Whole30, the gaps, the Whole30 for 6 months, you can go down that list. I was getting the blood work done, and they were saying, we don't know what's wrong with you. We have no idea what's wrong with you. No autoimmune triggers, nothing. It was just, I couldn't eat anything. I was anxious, and I was 24 wondering how I'm going to live the rest of my life. Like, do I want to live the rest of my life like this? And so what started me was I had a friend in chiropractic school that said, you have to go try these doctors. They barely touch you, and it's like life-changing. And I was like, whatever, I'll try it, but whatever. And instantly, there was so much healing from that I was like, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. So now I'm a family chiropractor, and I am completely healed of whatever it was that nobody could tell me what it was. And I know you guys have had this happen to you where you've gone through all the loops and you never found an answer. And so my main focus today is to teach you how your body works. So I know we just had an awesome chiropractic neurologist that came up here and talked to you about the nervous system. I'm going to get so basic with how your nervous system works because ultimately this is the system that controls your life. It is your life. So I heard a speaker earlier that talked about if you can't breathe, you can only live a few minutes. Well, when do they consider you dead? When your nervous system is no longer responding. And they can put you on life support, but if your nervous system isn't working, you're no longer alive. So this is the system that keeps us alive. It keeps us vital, and it keeps us going. So this presentation is originally, we do this quite often in my office, so it's originally an hour long. So I'm going to skip a few slides and take out some of the research just so that we can condense it for this time period, okay? So I focus on the nervous system and chronic health, and I coach for an Aligned Performance Institute, so that's where we're rewiring your thoughts, where we are, you're learning to think about what you think about. Again, that's focused on neurology. So we focus salutogenic approach, that's focusing on things that support health versus the factors that cause disease. So I'm focused on what is going to support your health versus what is your symptom, what is causing this illness. And that's two completely different mindsets. What can cause life versus what is causing death. Those are two different things, and they have completely different results. The people that come in that say, I may have this, but I'm not going to get stuck in this diagnosis. Those are the ones that are focused on what can make me healthier versus the stuck in the story, which it's easy to get stuck in the story when we've had it for so long and it's so uncomfortable and it's so painful. But the mindset is such a big thing. So these are a few of my resources here. I'm not going to go into it too much, but I want to talk to you guys about autoimmune conditions, autoimmune disorders, because oftentimes this is one of the big things with gut-brain connection is autoimmune disorders. So you can see the economic impact is $100 billion per year. And this is pre-COVID, guys. This is pre-COVID. And so now think of the impact that we're going to have because of this. And I know Dr. Joran just killed it with the vaccine one, and he gave you guys a lot of information. And so this is something that we're going to be facing a lot more. So I want you guys to walk away from here knowing what happens in your body, knowing and understanding your nervous system. And this is important for women because there's 3 really high points for women when you will get an autoimmune condition. First, after your first cycle, like once you start your cycle, postpartum, and especially after you've had multiple children, and then the last one is menopausal. So those are 3 times when you're most susceptible. But look at this, 69 women below the age of 50 will be diagnosed with breast cancer, yet as many as 1 in 9 women of childbearing years will be diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. That's pretty serious, but we're not talking about that as much. And I know you guys are more aware of it, but it's not a big thing. So what is an autoimmune disease? It's basically your system has taken over and it is now attacking itself. And so that's why you have so many different things. If you have one, they usually say you have multiple, right? I don't know how many of you have heard that, but that's a common thing that gets said. If you have one, you have multiple. So you can see all the different areas that an autoimmune condition can attack. And it's because the immune system has lost sight of self. It no longer can tell the difference between a toxin and you. And that's really hard to recover from. So we have anxiety that comes along with it. I don't know what happened to my slide there, but this affects 1 in 8 children or 9 million children. Again, pre-COVID numbers. I did that on purpose because I wanted you to see the example of how these numbers can really skyrocket. 2 million children, and this is just in the US as well. Depression, and I know I'm going through these really fast, but I want to make sure and get to the goodies. Chronic illness in the United States is $2.3 trillion per year, again, pre-COVID. So this is pretty impactful, what we're facing right now. And then 43%, almost half of our children have at least one of the 20 chronic health conditions. So now we are raising a sick generation. And I know you guys know this. I know you're faced this. You're already here, so you already understand this. That's why I'm moving through this pretty fast. So what's going on? With our systems, we have to first be aware of how they work. So we know how a car works. It needs its parts, its power, its information. Same thing goes with a computer. So with our human bodies, what do we need to live? And because you're kind of far away from me, I'm going to just say it. Like we need nutrition, we need good food, we need air, we need water, we need stimulation. These are things that we need. But what do we need to work properly? What do all these systems need to work properly? We need our information, and that information comes from our nervous system. Okay, skipping. No, this isn't my thing. So gut-brain quadrangle. This was directly from Paul Hardy. And he is an MD that focuses on neurodevelopmental disorders. So we just kind of adapted this. And so when we have an autoimmune condition, it affects the whole system. Like I know that they say this is a thyroid disease, but it affects everything. It affects energy, it affects how you think, it affects how you move, it affects how you respond to your children. So this is a whole body disorder. And we have the nervous system at the top because the nervous system controls all the other systems. It is the orchestrator of all the other organs, all the cells, all the tissues, everything. And so when we have stressors that come in and impact our nervous system, if this nervous system cannot adapt, that's when we start to have symptoms show up. And our symptoms are just feedback that tell us that something is wrong, that we're no longer adapting to the environment that we're in, okay? So we can look at this trifecta really quick. And I know that a lady before me was talking about genetics. Genetics are just a protein, and they require a certain environment to allow them to show. And I know that she went over them before, so I'm not going to go into that super deep. and which is great. We all play off of each other here today, so it's great. But the big one is environmental stressors. And we can look here, C-sections, antibiotics, drugs, but the big thing is chronic stress and altered vagal tone, and I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. These things lead to leaky gut. Most of you here know what leaky gut is, and I'm going to go into it just a little bit deeper here in a second. But once we get leaky gut, that's when we become susceptible to these autoimmune reactions, to allergies, to hypersensitivity, to everything, and multiple pathogens. That's when we are susceptible to toxicities, susceptible to infections, is when our nervous system can no longer adapt to the environment. Okay, so let's look at leaky gut. Leaky gut or permeable gut. So our gut is meant to be like this. Sorry, you can't step away from this microphone. It's meant to be bound like this, and only the little nutrients are supposed to get through. What's happening is that we are in such a stressed state, and we're eating bad food. And I know you guys are like on point with your diet, right? It's like we're on point, we eat all the best things, but even the best of us cheat every now and then. It's like we're human, right? We're human. And so what happens is this gut lining becomes susceptible. And so we get these holes in our gut. And so you can see, I'm usually like right next to my thing so I can like point out to it, but you can see the intestines, then you can, how it's supposed to be with those tight junctions. And then you can see as it starts to get through, bigger things start to get through. And then we get holes that stuff. You know that stuff that's in your intestines? Yeah, you know? It starts to get into your bloodstream. And so now you have these toxins floating around your blood. And I know this is like a little bit like, ooh, I don't like to hear this, but this is why your system starts attacking itself, because now you have proteins start to get through. You have things that are starting to get through that are not meant to get through. They're supposed to be exposed of, they're supposed to go out, but instead they're floating in your bloodstream. So your nervous system is responding to an overload of toxins. And so our autoimmune condition is just a signal, a feedback that the system is toxic. And the scary thing is that the same junctions, the same proteins that hold your gut together, hold your brain barrier together. So they're the things that protect the outsiders from getting through your brain. So when you have leaky gut, if you don't take care of it, you start to get leaky brain. And this is what it looks like when we have leaky gut. When you eat, you get bloating, gas, cramps, food allergies. But then when you have leaky brain, you get that fatigue, fibromyalgia, brain fog. You get mood issues, anxiety, depression, ADHD. These are all things that can come from leaky gut, leaky brain. And so I'm going to go through this really fast because this is the top 7. And a lot of the times when you've been going down this path to help your kids, to help yourself, you already know this. So I don't have to dive into this too much, but gluten in most grains, I mean, we know that. Sugar is a monster. It is a fighter, and carbs break down to sugar too. So really look at your gluten-free products and make sure that they don't have anything in them. And most of the time, you guys know how to read labels. So I'm speaking to the choir here, but just saying. Conventional meat, because your conventional meat eats grains. So if you're eating something that eats grains, then you're basically having grains, just in a different form. And conventional dairy, that's the same thing. And there's also a lot of hormones, a lot of things that can go with that. Refined vegetable oils, so trying to get your oils in a dark glass bottle, that make sure that they're not rancid. Because oils, they suck up plastic. That's what they're really good at. And so then you get your plastics in there. And let me just tell you, BPA looks molecularly similar to the myelin sheaths around your nerves. So you get BPA with leaky gut, and there you have MS. So, and I'm not saying that it will lead to MS, but just making those connections. Your brain will see an overload of BPA and it will tag it, has a memory to do that. And then if it continues and it becomes a regular thing, then it's going to tag your nerves just to say everything that looks like this has to go. Okay? Things that help leaky gut: aloe vera, lemon, Bone broth, but it has to be good quality. Coconut products like coconut oil. And some of you are like nuts, can't have them, but those of you that can have it, coconut products, sprouted seeds, and then hemp protein is better, and wild caught salmon. Again, you got to make sure it's wild caught, because if it's not, it's been fed grains, and that's not even on the food chain. So Lord knows what's happening with that. So let's look at the big thing that I want you to walk away from here, is how your brain functions, the powerhouse of your brain. Your brain is composed 60% of fat. It generates up to 25 watts of power, and it uses 25% of your body's oxygen and energy needs. Look at how much information it processes per second. So right now, you're processing the wind hitting you, the person sitting next to you, you're processing that they're sitting next to you. You're processing all the words that I'm saying. You're processing the kids over there playing. All of that is going on because of your brain, because of your nervous system. You know when you can feel somebody like staring at you, they're like behind you, and you're like, and they're there watching you? That's your nervous system. It's so sensitive. It can pick that up. You know when somebody walks in your room and you're like, I'm not talking to that person. That's your nervous system picking that up. This is the system that controls our life. And this just shows it. It's the master control system. It processes all sensory information. It sends the messages to the body, and it receives messages from the body. So every cell, every organ, every tissue, how your heart beats, where your blood flows, how your lungs breathe, this is all controlled by this system. It's all controlled. And it's responsible for your ability to adapt to your environment. And that is huge. Remember that. Your nervous system has to be able to adapt to its environment. Your gut contains 100 trillion bacteria. That's more cells than you have, so you're mainly your bacteria, your viruses, and your parasites. But the thing is that you have to have a balance between all of them. And when you're not able to adapt, that's when one takes over, and that's when the system loses control. Okay, so the literal connection is your vagus nerve. So this is part of your nervous system. It's our rest, digest, heal nerve. Okay, and it connects your vagus nerve to your brain to your digestive system. So literally, I could do this whole talk around this slide right here. So you have two different parts of your nervous system that happen automatically. They happen without you thinking about it, because 95% of your brain is focused on keeping you alive, focused on the systems that you're not even aware of. You're not even aware of your heart beating, because if you had to think about your heart beating, you'd be dead, right? I would. I know that. I don't have that much attention span. But so you have these two processes that happen automatically. You have the fight, flight, freeze, and you have rest, digest, heal. These are two automatic systems that you don't think about happening. So the fight, flight, freeze, let's just think about what's happening in this system. This is if a tiger were to run out from over here, what would your system do? Okay? It would, let's just go to the big ones. Accelerate your heart rate. So it moves your heart from your core organs in your stomach to your extremities so that you can run and get away. And it secretes adrenaline, so cortisol. And then it takes your blood flow and it moves it from the higher functioning centers of your brain down to the survival part of your brain. This is an automatic thing that happens, okay? And the rest, digest, heal on the other side is when all the blood flows go into the gut, go into the reproductive organs, go into the detoxification system. And that's when we're resting, we're healing, we're getting our nutrients from eating. What's happened in our society is we're stuck in that fight, flight, freeze. Our brain doesn't know the difference between a tiger running out from back there and your boss upsetting you, or your husband upsetting you, or your kids stressing you out. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference. And so we get stuck in these patterns of fight, flight, or freeze, and we can't get back over to the rest, digest, heal side. This isn't just for adults. This is for our kiddos too, unfortunately. And this is with an extremely stressful state right now that we're in. This is why I said we're only going to see an uproar in this, because now our fight, flight, freeze, our survival state is on high alert. And let me tell you, your brain is built on survival first. That's the first thing that it has to do. It's its most important task, is to keep you alive. And then for abundance. So if your brain cannot adapt enough to keep you alive, if it thinks that it's constantly in survival, then you won't be able to get over to rest, digest, heal. Okay? I'm going to go through this because this is research and it's a lot. A lot. So 10 ways to improve vagal tone. This is the tone of that vagus nerve that I was talking about. This is the nerve that's the rest, digest, heal side. So this is 10 ways. And I heard Dr. Solis earlier. He was talking about meditation. Boom, I think that's on here. Social relationships. And I don't just mean positive relationships. I mean relationships that are going to challenge your thought patterns, that are going to challenge the way that you think. Because again, we're made on balance. So there has to be a balance of stress and support, of challenge and support for this nervous system to function properly. Okay? Cold. So like cold baths, cold showers, that pumps the lymphatic system. There's a guy, Wim Hof. You can look him up, Wim Hof. He knows all about the cold. He's a cold professional, so I'm not going to go deep into that. Gargling, singing, chanting, humming. So gargling like tiny sips of water until your eyes water. Even if it's just like sip, go until you can't, and then rest. Sip, go until you can't, then rest. Because what your vagus nerve travels through your throat. And so let me tell you, when I'm feeling sick, I go to my car and I turn the music up and I sing as loud as I can, no matter who's in the vicinity. And if you got a significant other, just say, I don't feel good, I need to jam. So sing as loud as you can, because all of that stuff is innervated by the vagus nerve. And the more that you can stimulate it, the more it's stimulating your gut. The more that information, it's turning that nerve back on. It's like, hey, there's stimulation here. We need you to start working. So massage, this is a way to relax, get yourself out of fight, flight, freeze. Yoga, breathing deeply and slowly, which he talked about. Exercise to a certain degree. Don't over-exercise like I was doing. That's what I was doing. But movement, literally, you could go walk for 10 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever you can do. And you can start slow. It's so simple. You can start slow. And then chiropractic, and I'm going to talk to you about what we do a little bit more. Oh, here's a feedback from one of our people. So the past year and a half, I've been seeing medical professionals for rashes, always having no energy, struggling through the day, acne, and general blah feeling. Despite eating a healthy diet and getting exercise, I was still struggling. 3 months into treatment with these caring, intelligent doctors, here's what's going on. As of the past couple weeks, my acne has had minimal flare-ups. I have energy and I'm not dragging. And she even enjoys her days. So what's happening, and this is all just research, so I'm just going to talk about a little bit more about what we're looking for. So we are looking for this diminished state of being. It's a comprising of a state of reduced coherence within the nervous system, which creates altered biomechanical functions, altered neurological functions, and altered adaptability. Again, when your system is stuck in fight or flight, you cannot adapt. You can't adapt to your environment. So everything triggers you. And you're so close to threshold that the smallest things can set you off. They can set off your emotions, because remember when I said the blood flow when you're in a stressed state goes to your survival brain? That means the center of your brain up here that's meant to control the lower part of your brain isn't doing it. It's not controlling the emotional brain. It's not controlling those patterns so you have outbursts, because your blood flow isn't here. It's here to keep you alive. This is the areas that they're in, by the way. You can't see, but I'm pointing to it anyways. But that's what's happening in the system. And so look at the effects of this. Negative neuroplastic changes. So these are patterns in the nervous system, defensive patterns in your brain and your body. Decreased brainstem and or blood flow to the brain. Increased inflammation. Alterations in the cerebral spinal fluid, and spinal cord tension. And this is huge. The weight of a dime on your nerve can create disruption. And again, your nervous system controls everything. So if you have tension on your nervous system, the weight of a dime, it's going to create dysfunction. Okay? So chiropractic and vagal tone, this is all, again, research. So what we're doing in our office is we're trained to find the tension patterns within the spinal cord. So in our office, we don't ever mess with the bone. And there's chiropractors here that do. And so they both work great. But our focus is not on the bone. It's on the pattern in the brain that keeps pulling the bone out of place. Because your bone doesn't have a brain. It's not connected. It's controlled by the muscles, and the muscles are controlled by the brain. So if you have a pattern in your brain that keeps pulling that out or keeps showing up, that means that you have a defensive pattern in your system. What we're trained to do is find those defensive patterns and rewire them. And so we're never popping, cracking, twisting. We're rewiring the pattern in your nervous system, that defensive pattern. And so the action plan that we use is first restore the adaptability of the nervous system. Get it out of that fight, flight, freeze, that survival state, to where you're back into balance, to where you can adapt, to where you can recognize, oh, this isn't such a dangerous place. So I don't have to hit that high reaction. Does that make sense? Cool. Then you naturally start choosing better fuel. That means leaving out the wrong foods and starting to choose the better foods. That's actually what happened to Dr. Jared. So he always talks about my story, which you guys heard at the beginning, the dramaticness of my story. But when Jared started care, he just started to eat better because he ate terribly. Let me just tell you, he ate all the sweets, all the sugars, all the gluten. He didn't care. He just started to decide to eat better. And we have patients that say that a lot. Now, once you start choosing the right food, then you start healing because you're able to get into that rest, digest, heal. Most times I see people start with detox, but yet everything's open. The system, there's leaky gut, there's inflammation, there's things like that, and we can't get over to that heal side. So now we dump all these toxins into the system, and we can't adapt to that stressor that we just placed on the system. And so making sure that the system that controls the digestive system is functioning properly is our first start. And then you guys just naturally move into detox repair. And we work with people for that. More. You can look at kids, how early this starts. 1,000 infants were checked the first month of life. 80% were found to have vertebral subluxation. And 1,250 infants were found. 90% suffered birth trauma and strain through the neck. And the 10% was severe trauma. And I consider them the lucky ones because it gets found, so they get treatment. Others, this is the first 5 days of life. Who knows when it gets caught? You know, it's 6 years old or after they've had some kind of severe trauma, that's when it gets found. And so that's why we see kids right away. So these are the side benefits of what we do. Side benefits. So you have your side effects from medications. I could read this really fast, but I don't have any water and I don't think I could do it. But autoimmune function, endocrine function, that's hormones. Cardiovascular function, your heart. Your immune system, muscle strength. I'm going to skip over reaction time, neurocognitive functions. Y'all could take a picture of this. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's just when the system that controls it all is functioning at its highest level, when it's coherent, when it's able to adapt to the environment, it does the healing. We don't have to we don't have to tell you, get on this diet. We don't have to tell you, do this exercise. Your system starts to do it itself. Okay? Do I have any questions? No. Okay, so I'm going to finish this. Seeing Dr. Nicole and Dr. Jared is something I wish I'd done 20 years ago. She had an unusual bladder issue that is so much better, and she just started. So it's been 2 months, and she's grateful for what they have helped her achieve. Now, this is true with brain fog. This is true with fatigue, fibromyalgia, things like that. This is what we see in our office on the regular. And so we're not focused on your pain. We're focused on making your nervous system function better. So I hope that you guys learned a little bit about how your brain works, how it functions, because this is the most important system in your entire body that controls it all. And yet we're not taught this in elementary school, So I'm just going to get up here and tell you the basics of how your brain works. So thank you guys so much. And we're in tent 5, so you guys can come by and ask any questions afterwards. So thank you.